In the quiet suburbs of Maplewood, where the hum of sprinklers and the laughter of children paint a picture of safety, a night of trust would descend into unimaginable tragedy. It began with a young couple, two innocent children, and a babysitter with a secret so sinister it would forever haunt a community. What led a seemingly ordinary teenage girl to cross the line from caretaker to criminal? And how could a single night unravel into a desperate cover-up involving deceit, blame, and the family dog? Behind the closed doors of a suburban home, trust turned to terror, and a devastating secret was born. What really happened that night? And why did one panicked decision spiral into a web of lies and irreversible consequences? Tonight, we uncover the chilling truth behind the babysitter's secret, a story of misplaced trust, tragic mistakes, and the thin line between innocence and guilt. But before the tragic climax, we must begin at the start. Who was this family, and how did a quiet night in Maplewood descend into chaos? As we peel the narratives of this story layer by layer, do not forget to like this video, share it with fellow true crime enthusiasts, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a case that will leave you questioning everything. Meet the Hendersons, a family that embodied the heart of Maplewood. Scott and Lisa Henderson were the kind of couple who drew admiration from their neighbors. Scott, a financial analyst with a calm demeanor, balanced his demanding career with a devotion to his family. Lisa, a stay-at-home mom with a knack for creativity, was known for her warm smile and her homemade crafts, which often adorned local community fairs. Their children were their pride and joy. Ethan was a curious and energetic boy, always eager to explore the world around him. Mia, only 8 months old, was the darling of the family. Her giggles were said to brighten even the gloomiest days. The Henderson home was a sanctuary of love and stability, a place where laughter echoed through the halls and evenings were spent sharing bedtime stories. But life, as it often does, demanded compromises. Scott and Lisa, like many parents, occasionally needed a trusted hand to help with their children. Enter Sarah Miller. Sarah was the Hendersons' 17-year-old neighbor, a high school senior. She was known for her bubbly personality and responsible nature. To the outside world, Sarah was the quintessential girl next door, friendly, reliable, and adored by the children she babysat. But beneath Sarah's cheerful exterior lay a shadow she kept carefully hidden. Unbeknownst to the Hendersons, Sarah was grappling with a secret battle, a growing addiction to painkillers, a habit that began innocuously enough with a prescription for a sports injury. What started as occasional relief from physical pain had morphed into a dependency she could no longer control. Desperate to maintain her image, Sarah concealed her struggles from everyone around her. She believed she could handle it, that she could keep her addiction from interfering with her responsibilities. But addiction has a way of creeping into even the most carefully managed facades. On the evening of October 15th, 2019, Scott and Lisa left for an overnight anniversary trip, entrusting Sarah with their most precious treasures, Ethan, Mia, and the family dog, Max. The instructions were simple: bedtime routines, a bottle warming schedule for Mia, and emergency contacts in case of trouble. It was supposed to be an uneventful night. But behind the smiles and reassurances, the stage was set for a night that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. What began as a routine babysitting job was about to spiral into a harrowing ordeal. How could such an ordinary night take such a dark and deadly turn? To answer that, we must step inside and witness the unraveling of a hidden nightmare. At first, the night appeared to unfold without incident. Sarah, as usual, took to her duties with ease, playing games with Ethan, feeding Mia her bedtime bottle, and putting both children to bed. But the clock was ticking, and beneath her composed demeanor, Sarah's carefully guarded secret began to surface. By 9:30 p.m., with the children asleep, Sarah found herself alone in the quiet house. Overwhelmed by her escalating cravings, she made a fateful decision. She reached for the pill she had promised herself she wouldn't need that night. But addiction does not bargain, it demands, and that demand set a series of catastrophic events into motion. The peace of the evening shattered as Mia began to cry. Sarah, disoriented and increasingly agitated, stumbled up the stairs. In her haze, she struggled to soothe the baby, rocking Mia in her arms. Sarah's erratic movements and impaired judgment proved fatal. In a moment of panic, she pressed the baby too tightly against her chest in an attempt to quiet her. When Sarah realized what had happened, the weight of her actions hit her like a tidal wave. Mia, the sweet and innocent baby entrusted to her care, was gone. Panic set in, and with it, a desperate need to cover her tracks. Rather than calling for help, Sarah succumbed to fear. She convinced herself that she could fix what had gone so terribly wrong. Her first thought? To deflect suspicion. In her frantic state, she turned to the family dog, Max. She staged the scene to look like a tragic accident. Max, the family's beloved golden retriever, would take the blame. Sarah believed this story would absolve her of guilt and protect her from the truth she couldn't bear to face. But the cracks in her plan were already forming. Her erratic behavior didn't go unnoticed. Ethan, who had woken to the commotion, saw the tension on Sarah's face and the disarray in the room. Unaware of the gravity of the situation, he asked innocent questions that only deepened Sarah's panic. By the early hours of the morning, Sarah's fragile plan had begun to unravel. She couldn't hide the truth forever. And the moment Scott and Lisa walked through the door, the tragedy she had tried to conceal would come crashing down. What did the Hendersons find when they returned home? And how did Sarah's desperate attempt to cover up her actions lead to even darker revelations? The truth was about to emerge, and it would devastate everyone involved. When Scott and Lisa Henderson returned home, they were greeted not by the warmth of their sleeping children, but by a scene of confusion and despair. Sarah met them at the door, her face pale, her words stumbling. She claimed Max, the family dog, had accidentally smothered baby Mia during the night. Lisa's anguished sobs filled the house as Scott confirmed the worst. Baby Mia was unresponsive in her crib. Within minutes, a frantic 911 call brought emergency responders to the scene. But it was too late. Mia was gone, and questions about how it had happened began swirling. Sarah's story, though heart-wrenching, raised immediate suspicion. Max, a gentle golden retriever, had never shown any signs of aggression. And when the police examined Mia's body, the inconsistencies began to mount. The medical examiner's preliminary findings contradicted Sarah's version of events. Mia's injuries were inconsistent with being smothered by an animal. Instead, they pointed to something far more deliberate, a forceful and human act. Investigators turned their attention to Sarah. Her nervous demeanor, coupled with gaps in her story, made her an immediate focus. A search of her belongings soon uncovered a clue, a small prescription bottle tucked into her backpack. The discovery of the pills raised critical questions. What role had they played in the events of that night? And was Sarah's judgment impaired by something she had tried so desperately to hide? Under mounting pressure, Sarah's carefully constructed story began to unravel. Confronted with the evidence, she broke down, confessing that Mia's death had been an accident born of panic and poor judgment. But the confession wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Investigators pieced together the truth. Mia's death wasn't premeditated, but Sarah's addiction had clouded her judgment and led to a series of devastating decisions. Her choice to stage the scene and blame Max only deepened the tragedy, leaving a grieving family shattered and a young woman facing the full weight of her actions. The turning point came not only with Sarah's confession, but with the ripple effects it unleashed. The Hendersons were left grappling with unbearable loss, while Sarah faced a legal battle that would define the rest of her life. The community, too, was left in shock, asking how such a tragedy could happen in their quiet town. But the case wasn't closed yet. As investigators dug deeper into Sarah's past, they uncovered a troubling pattern that hinted at just how far her struggles had gone and how many red flags had been missed along the way. What was the full extent of Sarah's hidden life? And how did the system fail to prevent such a devastating outcome? The revelations that followed would leave the entire town questioning everything they thought they knew. The aftermath of Mia's death reverberated far beyond the walls of the Henderson home. For Scott and Lisa, grief consumed their lives. The joy and laughter that once defined their family had been replaced by silence and unanswered questions. How had their trust in Sarah led to such devastation? And could they ever find peace after such an unimaginable loss? Scott channeled his pain into seeking justice for Mia, attending every court proceeding and demanding answers. Lisa, meanwhile, struggled to reconcile her heartbreak with the haunting knowledge that someone they trusted had been responsible. The couple faced the painful task of explaining to Ethan why his baby sister was never coming home. In court, Sarah was charged with involuntary manslaughter and evidence tampering. Her defense argued that addiction had clouded her judgment and that she never intended to harm Mia. The prosecution, however, painted a starkly different picture, one of negligence, deception, and betrayal of trust. "We trusted her," Lisa told the court. "She was supposed to protect our children, not destroy our family." Her words echoed the anguish of every parent's worst nightmare. During the trial, Sarah's addiction took center stage. Experts testified about the grip of opioid dependency and its ability to distort judgment. They detailed the escalation of her habit and the missed opportunities for intervention by friends, family, and even the healthcare system. The case drew national attention, casting a harsh spotlight on the growing opioid epidemic and its hidden casualties. Mia's death became a symbol of the crisis, of lives destroyed not just by addiction, but by the ripple effects it creates in families and communities. The Hendersons emerged from the trial seeking more than justice. They became advocates for change, calling for better awareness, prevention, and support for those battling addiction. Their courage inspired others to speak out, but the road to healing remained long and uncertain. Sarah was sentenced to 8 years in prison, a punishment that, for some, felt too lenient. For others, it was a tragic end for a young woman whose life had also been derailed by addiction. The Hendersons, however, focused not on the length of the sentence, but on rebuilding their lives in the shadow of their loss. For Ethan, the tragedy would shape his childhood in ways no parent could have prepared for. He often asked about Mia, struggling to understand why she was gone and whether he had done something wrong. Scott and Lisa worked tirelessly to provide him with the love and support he needed to heal. In Maplewood, Mia's death became a catalyst for change. The community came together to address the underlying issues that had gone unnoticed for so long. Addiction awareness programs were launched in local schools, and resources for struggling families were expanded. Mia's memory became a beacon for prevention and hope. Though the pain of her loss remained, the Hendersons found solace in the ways Mia's short life inspired action and reflection. Her story served as a reminder of the fragility of trust and the profound consequences of hidden struggles. But even as the Hendersons sought to move forward, questions lingered about the signs that were missed, the actions that might have prevented the tragedy, and the lives forever changed by one fateful night. Mia Henderson's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly life can change. A night meant for trust and care spiraled into tragedy, leaving behind profound pain and lingering questions. Yet, her memory endures, etched into the hearts of her family and a community forever altered by the events of that fateful night. Beyond the personal loss, this case revealed cracks in a broader system. It exposed the silent grip of addiction and the devastating impact it has not just on the individual, but on families and communities. Sarah Miller's struggle was hidden in plain sight, her cries for help muffled by the stigma surrounding addiction. For Sarah, prison became a place of reckoning and reflection. Reports from within indicated she was engaging in addiction counseling and expressing remorse for her actions. But even as she sought to rebuild her life, the weight of her decisions would follow her forever. For Scott and Lisa, the road to healing has been slow and uncertain. Their advocacy work has brought meaning to their pain, but no amount of activism can fill the void left by Mia's absence. The Hendersons' courage to share their story has sparked conversations nationwide about the opioid crisis, trust, and accountability. They hope their tragedy can prevent others from facing the same heartache. This case is not just about one family's loss or one young woman's mistakes. It's about the systemic failures that allowed addiction to spiral unchecked and the need for communities to come together and support awareness and action. As we close this chapter, we are left with a sobering truth. Tragedies like this one don't just happen in isolation. They are the result of choices, struggles, and circumstances often overlooked until it's too late. Perhaps the greatest lesson from Mia's story is this: trust is precious, and vigilance is essential. Thank you for joining us for this heart-wrenching story from horror and crime. What are your thoughts on the tragedy of Mia Henderson and the lessons it holds? Share your insights in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life crime chronicles. Together, we can keep these stories alive and learn from them. Next time, we take you to another quiet neighborhood, one where a petty dispute over a fence line spiraled into deadly violence. For years, two families lived side by side, their lives intertwined by proximity and growing hostility. But when tempers flared over the construction of a simple shed, the feud reached a breaking point. How did a simple disagreement turn into a nightmare of bloodshed? And what does it reveal about the thin line between civility and chaos? Join us for Neighborly Nightmare, the feud that ended in bloodshed.